South Africa will win a cease and desist order against Israel for genocide against the Palestinians.
South Africa has become the first country to file a case against Israel before the International Court of Justice in The Hague, alleging that Tel Aviv's military offensive on Palestine's Gaza amounts to genocide. Pretoria's authorities are seeking an immediate cessation of Israel's military operations in the besieged territory that have killed over 23,000 Palestinians, predominantly women and children. In its 84-page lawsuit, South Africa argues that Israel has caused severe mental and bodily harm to Palestinians and has deliberately created conditions that are calculated to bring about their physical destruction. The lawsuit says that Israel has failed to prevent genocide and breached obligations outlined in the 1948 Genocide Convention. The statements referenced in the application use excerpts of speeches by numerous Israeli politicians that South Africa claims are incitements to genocide, like this one by Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, where he sought to justify Israel's onslaught on Gaza through biblical reasoning, invoking the story of Amalek in reference to the holy war between good and the evil described in the Torah.
זכור את אשר עשה לך עמלק נצטווינו. אנו זוכרים ואנו נלחמים.
The other genocidal acts mentioned in the suit include Israel's relentless attacks on hospitals, its mass forced displacement of civilians, and the complete siege it imposed on the enclave, effectively cutting off its supply of necessities such as food, water, and medicines, which has pushed Gaza towards the brink of famine. The application also reveals how Israel has been obliterating Gaza's religious, historical, and cultural sites, including universities and museums, thus eradicating the memories of the places that Palestinians call home. Founded in 1945, the ICJ, also known as the World Court, is the highest legal body of the United Nations to deal with disputes between states. Both Israel and South Africa are signatories of the 1948 Genocide Convention, which comes under the court's jurisdiction. Under the convention, genocide refers to acts committed with the intent to destroy, in whole or in part, a national, ethnical, racial, or religious group. All signatories are obliged not only to refrain from committing genocide, but also to take measures to prevent and punish its enablers.
We identify with the PLO because, just like ourselves, they are fighting for the right of self-determination.
South Africa has historically supported the Palestinian cause. The ruling African National Congress has deep ties with the Palestinian Liberation Movement, stemming from its own struggle against apartheid and colonial rule. Decades later, the solidarity remains strong as many Black South Africans see parallels between the Palestinian struggle for self-determination and fight against Israel's decades-long occupation and their own struggle against colonial rule, segregation, and apartheid. Since Israel began its brutal offensive in Gaza on October 7, the Rainbow Nation has seen several protests in support of Palestinians. Recently, South Africa's parliament also voted to close the Israeli embassy in the country's capital, Pretoria, and withdrew its diplomatic staff from Tel Aviv. South Africa will now be delivering a referral to the ICJ with the backing of several other countries and rights groups, all of whom have labeled Israel's actions a genocide. Palestinians are applauding the move.
يوم الخميس يرفع علم جنوب إفريقيا في قلب فلسطين. تلك الدولة التي ستقول أمام محكمة العدل الدولية والعالم أن إسرائيل دولة مجرمة وأنها ترتكب جرائم بحق الفلسطينيين.
On January 11, a 15-judge panel, with one additional judge from both South Africa and from Israel, will deliberate upon whether Israel has breached the Genocide Convention. Israel and South Africa will both present oral arguments to object to and to support the case, respectively. If the ICJ deems that this case comes under its jurisdiction, it will move forward in The Hague, and Israel may then file a preliminary objection arguing that the ICJ has no legal grounds to look at the evidence presented by South Africa. If that objection is overruled, the case will then move towards public hearings. But it may take several years to complete the public hearings. South Africa has, however, requested that the court order Israel to immediately suspend its military offensive and halt its genocidal activities in Gaza, and to issue the ICJ with regular updates regarding such measures. Known as provisional measures, an order of this sort could tentatively prevent Israel from doing further damage while the hearing is underway. While the measures are legally binding, they are not always followed. Like Gambia's case against Myanmar in 2019 over the Rohingya genocide, or a 2022 case filed by Ukraine against Russia. The court ordered Russia to halt its operations in Ukraine, but the war wages on. Israel has rejected the genocide claims, calling South Africa's case blood libel and a despicable and contemptuous exploitation of the court, accusing it of being complicit in alleged Hamas attacks.
In giving political and legal cover to the October 7 massacre and the Hamas human shield strategy, South Africa has made itself criminally complicit with Hamas's campaign of genocide against our people.
So far, Israel's biggest ally, the United States, which has aided and abetted Tel Aviv in its military offensive on the besieged enclave, has thrown its weight behind the Israeli state.
We find this submission meritless, counterproductive, and completely without any basis in fact whatsoever.
While the ICJ's ruling may not be able to stop Tel Aviv's onslaught, a ruling against Israel will force the US and other signatories of the Genocide Convention to reconsider the legality of their financial and military assistance to the Israeli state.
So this order, when it comes down, could have very significant consequences for Israel. Well, at that point, the entire world will know that Israel is inflicting genocide against the Palestinians, and under Article 1, they will have an obligation, quote, to prevent, unquote, the genocide against the Palestinians.